I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, before we get to the story, hello to all the new Extraordinary Stories podcast listeners. And there are plenty of you. Lots of new listeners. So I've been doing a bit of a big promotion push at the moment, and it's bringing lots and lots of new listeners to the podcast. So hello, if you are new. If you think that there is someone in your life who could benefit from the stories, then send them the podcast. Pick your favourite episode. Pick whichever one you like, whichever one sticks out to you the most. Force it into their ears and say, oi, listen to this. I have to thank a lot of other podcasts out there who have been wonderful in helping me to promote Extraordinary Stories podcast. I've gotten a bit carried away with it. I'm now just like, I've just gone a bit. The other night, Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, who has an amazing podcast called, oh my god, why have I forgotten the name of it? It's called Getting Curious. Oh my god, I forgot the name of it. It's called Getting Curious. Brilliant podcast. Yep, suddenly the other night I was like, I think Jonathan Van Ness needs to know about Extraordinary Stories podcast. I sent him this message what, you should be listening to this podcast. Come on, let's support each other. Help me. Yeah, zero reply, of course. He's like one of the biggest stars at the moment. I'm like, yeah, you should definitely be listening to Extraordinary Stories, but just keep pushing the message, keep sending it out there. Anyway, let's continue with the Survivor series. Okay, so this first story, it's horrible, but there is a glimmer of hope. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, so we are in 2006 and we're in Southern Carolina. It was the 6th of September when 14-year-old Elizabeth Schoaf had finished school for the day and she was heading home. So Elizabeth, she says goodbye to her friends on the school bus. She says to them, I'll see you Monday. And she's planning to run home and get ready for the weekend. Do you remember when you were like 14 and the school week ended and the weekend was just the most amazing thing? It was just actually the best. I mean, I know lots of adults and lots of you who are listening will be 9 to 5 and then your weekend arrives and that 5 o'clock on a Friday's like, it's party time because you're like, I don't really have that in my life. There's a sort of non-stop kind of, I don't really know where the full stop on my week is, but yeah, that feeling when you go, oh, I've now got a clear block of time and I can just relax and I can just do whatever before it starts again. So that's what the 14-year-old Elizabeth is feeling that day when she leaves school. So it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. So now the distance from where the school bus drops Elizabeth and her family home, it's not far. It's a 5 at the most 10-minute, if you were doing it slowly, walk. So this was a walk from the school bus to her house that she did twice a day, every weekday, to the school bus and back. Now the area that she's living in Southern Carolina, it's nice. It's a suburban area. There's a real nice sense of community. One of those, everyone knows everyone. People were passing by, they would know Elizabeth in the street, they would stop, they would say, hi Elizabeth, how are you? Whatever. She was familiar with the road, familiar with the area. So on that day, 6th of September 2006, Elizabeth's walk home from the bus was about to be interrupted in the most terrible way. As she's walking home, a stranger approaches her. A man, an adult that she has never seen. He's dressed in army fatigues, a sort of casual version of army fatigues. Now, he's walking towards Elizabeth and he stops her. Now, Elizabeth, as we are going to learn, is a savvy 14-year-old. And she knows you don't talk to strangers. But he gets in her way and he blocks her path. So she's trying to get past him and he keeps blocking her way. And he says, I'm a police officer and I need your help. Odd. Why would a police officer be stopping a 14-year-old girl on the street, physically stopping her, walking past, and then saying, I need your help? Well, of course he wasn't a police officer. Before Elizabeth knows what has happened, in broad daylight at 4:30 in the afternoon, this man has placed handcuffs on Elizabeth's hands and he is dragging her in the direction of a nearby forest. A forest that's only a mile from her home. Okay, who is this dickhead? Who is this absolute monster? Well, he is Vincent Filiaw, a registered sex offender. A sex offender the police had been trying to track down unsuccessfully for months. For months they had been looking for this man. He had been charged previously with the molestation of a 12-year-old girl, but he had previously escaped police and he was a wanted man. Vincent Filiaw, I have to say, Google him. He is one creepy looking fucker. Ugh. He's tall, he's skinny, shaved head. Oh, he's just got the face of a man you know is just trouble. Oof. Something dead in his eyes. There's something dead behind his eyes. So now, Phil Yaw has the 14-year-old Elizabeth, and he's dragging her towards the forest. For over an hour, they walk, and he walks in all kinds of crazy directions. And the plan here, his plan, is to completely disorientate Elizabeth. He wants to get her to a point where she is so confused about where she is that she, if she wanted to run, if she could run, she would be in serious trouble because she wouldn't have a clue in which direction to start going. What we'll come to learn later, and this will unfold, is that this man has the most insane knowledge of this forest. He knows every inch of this wooded area inside out. And so he deliberately uses this hour to try and pull her in one direction, throw her off, take her in another, and confuse her beyond all belief. I'll just interject before we get to the horror of what's going to happen to Elizabeth and say, see, if I was Elizabeth at this moment, it would not take much to fuck up my sense of direction. Honestly, my sense of direction is my Achilles heel. It's the thing that lets me down all the time. It's the thing that, I swear to God, it's going to be my death one day, is the fact that I got lost somewhere. I seem to have, as an adult, no ability to remember what direction anything is in. And it's bizarre, right? For someone who pays such detailed attention to stories, and I pay such detailed attention to people. I mean, if you said to me, oh, that person that you met 3 years ago, I could probably describe that person in detail. What they were wearing, how they spoke, what they said. I can remember all these details, fuck's sake. Can I get myself from A to B? No, I cannot without getting lost. I'll tell you this really quickly, right? I went to Berlin a few years ago for New Year. So, it's New Year, right? It's Hogmanay, great. Out in a club, having a brilliant time. Decided, right, at 1 a.m, I needed something from the place that I was staying in. So, I said, right, I was with a group of people and I said, right, okay, you stay here. I'm just going to jump back to the apartment. I'm going to get something and I'll be back in a minute. To which I was greeted with a load of faces looking really unconvinced. And one of my mates said to me, Barry, do you want me just to come with you? Because you'll just get lost. And I was like, fuck off, I will not get lost. Shut up. Thinking I'm totally bold, right? I was like, great. So I leave the club and I'm in a t-shirt, right? I'm in Berlin, it's -2, no jacket. I was like, nah, I'm so convinced I know where I'm going. It's literally just down there, round the corner. I'll be totally fine. I don't need help getting round Berlin. An hour later, I am wandering the streets in the snow, stopping people, going, Guten Abend, and then trying to say in German, I am lost. Could I remember what direction the apartment was in? No. Could I remember what direction the club was in? No. And you know how I was rescued? One of my friends was walking the streets just shouting, Barry! Barry! And eventually I followed the voice, and when I got to him, he was so livid. He was like, fuck's sake, Barry, I knew I should have come with you. You get fucking lost everywhere we go. Gave me a big massive rant. He was like, you get lost in Glasgow and you've lived there your whole fucking life. Why did you ever think you'd be okay in Berlin? I was like, okay, alright. Lesson learned. Sense of direction, not my friend. Okay. Anyway, enough of me. Back to 14-year-old Elizabeth. Now, I want you to remember one thing here. One thing that's going to stay with us in this story. Elizabeth, she might have been 14, but I have such admiration for this girl because she is savvy and she's strong. Now, she knows this man's not a policeman. She's like, he is taking me around this forest and he's trying to disorientate me. And she keeps a really keen eye for any marker that she can find, anything in the forest that might help her in any way should she ever need it. You know, is there a specific tree that she can see? Is there a specific something that she can go, that's a marker for me? When they finally stop, when Phil Yaw has had enough of walking Elizabeth around, she's about to see something which is terrifying and must be everyone's worst nightmare. He shows her the underground bunker that he has built. This man has built an area underground designed to kidnap someone and store them in this place. Elizabeth is staring down at a bunker that he has built, which is 4 feet wide and about 10 feet long. And he has dug this bunker into the ground and then found a way to put a cover over it so that you would never see it from a distance. Essentially, it's a coffin shape. The absolutely terrifying thing is that he can stand above it and watch a victim lie in this bunker, which looks like a coffin. And at ground level, he can just watch them from above. In the tiny, tiny bunker that he built, there was a toilet. And he had forced a single bed into the bunker. There's a little battery-powered TV, and there's not much else. Phil Yaw forces Elizabeth into the bunker and makes her lie on the single bed. Now, she is terrified. Next, he strips her naked. He then proceeds to rape her. Just before he rapes her, he does one more thing. This fucking animal, this fucking prick of a man. He goes towards a bag that he has, and Elizabeth is wondering what the hell is going to come out of this bag. From the bag, he takes out a set of explosives. Explosives that he has fashioned into the shape of a chain, and he wraps the chain of explosives around the 14-year-old Elizabeth's neck. He says to her, "Don't be scared. These are a precaution. Don't try to move or run, or it will end badly for you." Phil Yaw rapes the 14-year-old lying in the bunker with explosives around her neck, and she stays silent the entire time. I mean, I just can't. There's certain stories, right, and I get to them and I go, I just can't, I have to stop. There's certain ones, there's so many half episodes of Extraordinary Stories where I've got to a point in a story and I've gone, no, that's it. Nah, no more. Nope, I'm not doing this one. But you know something? I took a break from this story. I went away and I thought about it. And then I thought about her, and I thought about that experience, and I thought about what's going to come later in the story and what unfolds for Elizabeth, and I came back to it. And so if you're struggling and having a hard time with the fact that someone could do this to a 14-year-old girl, then stay with me, because I know that I went through the same thing of going, oh, fuck, it's just too brutal. I think her story needs to be told, and you'll see as the story unfolds why. So after he's raped her, he takes out a set of chains and he ties them around her body so that she is lying in this tiny underground bunker and can't move. And from here, he continues to rape her over and over. In the first day that he takes Elizabeth, he rapes her 6 times. He brings her water from a nearby pond to drink, and she refuses to drink it. She refuses to drink the pond water, but her body is dehydrated. She's now in the place where actually she is so dependent on her captor for the most basic of needs. You know, it's these, all the time, you know, we know these stories. I told the JC Lee DeGarde story, the earlier episodes, and that was way back. I think it was like episode 4, episode 5, where people become so dependent on their captor just to live, and that is horrific. So, away from the bunker, what's happening? Well, it's now 6:30, and Elizabeth hasn't returned home. So her parents are very concerned. She should have gotten off the school bus and come home like every other day, and she hasn't. So they call the police. They're starting to really panic. Where can she be? I mean, what's devastating is she is less than a mile from their home. From her own home, she is less than a mile. But she's in a fucking underground bunker. Her family call police. Police come out. They take a report. And at first, well, they're not too worried. She'll show up, they think. She'll come home. Her family are less willing to believe that she's just going to walk home. Just appear in the house. The night closes in. And of course, as her family suspect, Elizabeth doesn't return home. So by now, they are beside themselves with worry. Police are paying a little bit more attention now, because a few hours have passed and she's not come home. And so a search begins. But it's small. It's a very small search to start with, and it just really starts with the local area. The first night passes. Her family don't sleep. They are absolutely terrified that something has happened. Elizabeth in the bunker is so exhausted from that first day that she falls asleep. When she wakes up on day 2, there he is again. Phil Yaw is ready to rape Elizabeth on day 2 again. Repeatedly. Can't even get the words out of my mouth there. I'm properly sick. By now, her family are raising all kinds of hell. I mean, there are huge search parties that the family have organised looking for Elizabeth. Our parents are going round and they're asking, has anyone seen our daughter? The police do a check of the school CCTV and they confirm that yes, she did get on the bus. So she was on that bus. Her friends will say yes, she left the bus at 4:30 on the Friday. She waved to us. She said, bye, I'll see you Monday. And that was the last that she's seen. How many times, right, have we heard this? And this is just frustrating as fuck. Police, although they're looking at it, what are they treating it as? I'll give you, as a true crimist out there, a guess. What do you think? If you guessed they're looking at it as a teenage runaway, then you guessed correctly. Because I feel like that hangs in the background of every story of a missing teenager. But what frustrates me with Elizabeth's story is this was not 1980. This was 2006. Surely by this point, I know police can't look at every teenager that doesn't come home and assume something absolutely terrible has happened. But living in the world that we live in now, with the knowledge that we have, surely you have to move to that conclusion slightly quicker than, oh, she's just a runaway, she'll turn up when she's hungry. Oh, she'll come home when she's ready. That just causes, it frustrates me. It frustrates her parents beyond belief, because they're like saying to police, look, we know our daughter, she isn't a runaway. Something has happened. You're talking about a really well-adjusted, great 14-year-old girl. She's not run away from home. There's no drugs involved. There's no bad boyfriend involved. There's no secret life that she's living. Something has happened. On day 2 in the bunker, the reality of the situation really starts to hit Elizabeth. She starts to think about the fact that he actually has access to water, albeit pond water, and that for the past 24 hours she's not heard a single sound nearby. And she realises, actually, I'm not going to be here for just a short day. He's not just going to rape me and let me go. This isn't a quick experience. This isn't a quick grab someone, attack them and run. This is something this man has planned out carefully. So what does Elizabeth do? Well, over day 2 and horribly day 3, she tries to gain the trust of Filio. Rather than scream, shout and spit in his face, she actually attempts to talk to Filio. And it works. Elizabeth manages to find things to talk about which interest him. And he starts to chat really freely with her. Now, here's where, this is why I'm saying stick with the story. Because she's great. She goes one step further and she manages to convince him that she might actually enjoy her time with him. I mean, as ludicrous as that sounds, as a strategy, it works. On the 3rd day, he lets her out of the bunker to walk around, get some fresh air. And she's still got the explosives around her neck. He's using those as a warning that should she try anything, she'd be dead. Now he goes with her, obviously, as she walks around, not letting her out of his sight. But, you know, at least she's taking a little bit of control of the situation. I totally love what she does here. It's a smart move. I suppose in those moments you'd just do whatever you could. As they're walking around, she very casually and very subtly, without him noticing, she starts to pull out strands of her hair. And again, without him noticing, she starts to just drop them around the wooded area. In the hope that should she be here for months, that maybe if a police officer or someone was to come along, they might find a hair and they might make a match. So day 4 comes, and it has in store for Elizabeth the same things that day 1, 2 and 3 have had. More rape, more being forced to lay down in the bunker for hours. Day 5 comes, and he's now raping Elizabeth up to 10 times a day. The hunt for Elizabeth has turned into a major search. And now she's being treated as a missing person who may have been a victim of kidnap or worse. But still, although searches of the woods are being undertaken, search parties and police are not finding the bunker that she's in. So we were at day 5. Day 6 comes. Day 7 comes. day 8, and day 9. And they all bring the same thing: more sexual attacks upon Elizabeth. And then day 10 arrives, and this is where things are going to change. Now, Philyaw didn't have many possessions. He didn't have very much of anything. But he did have one thing that was of interest to Elizabeth. He had a phone. He had a phone with him. Now, my one question here was, how the fuck is he charging that phone? I can't get my phone to charge for more than like an hour at a time. But anyway, here we go. Anyway, maybe he wasn't using it very much. Philyaw does not seem to me the kind of man who has friends constantly texting him. On the 10th day, Elizabeth has been looking at the fact that he has a phone, and she says to him, "Could I borrow your phone just to play games for a while on it, just to pass the time?" Now, he's a little bit dubious at first. He's not willing to just hand over the phone, but she has gained his trust. So he agrees. He gives her the phone, and she takes it. And while it looks like she's playing different games, what she's actually doing is she's sending out text messages to any number that she can remember. And one of the things that Elizabeth remembers off by heart is her mum's phone number. Brilliant. I mean, it's not something I don't think we maybe do anymore, do we? Do we remember numbers? I tell you what, if I had kids, I would make damn sure that they knew my number off by heart. I think that comes from actually, my dad is big on this. When me and my brother were teenagers, we had to know every number off by heart. It was like, it's so strange. He'd be like, "What's your national insurance number?" You'd be like, "Ooh." You have to say it. "What's the home phone number?" Right, you have to say it. "What's your grand's phone number?" No, whatever. And do you know something? To this day, it's held me in really good stead. I might have, as we've learned, the most shocking sense of direction, my friends. But I tell you this, I know all of my bank details off by heart. I know all my card numbers. I know the postcodes, the phone numbers to every house I've ever lived in the past 15 years. I know all of that. It's all stored in my brain. And it's because my dad is just so like, learn these numbers, commit them to your memory. Don't ever forget them. Anyway, Elizabeth has committed her mum's number to memory, and she sends a text message to her mum. She says, "I'm in the woods. I'm underground. I think he's crazy." As soon as her mum gets that message, she shows it to police, and police spring in to action. An immediate search of the woodland begins. Also, they can trace where the general area that the text message has been sent from. So, slowly, very, very slowly, they start to zero in on where she is. Elizabeth gives him back his phone, but she doesn't say that she's texted anyone, and he doesn't check any of that. He just assumes that she has just been playing games. Now, you remember that I said he had a battery-operated TV down in the bunker. Well, he's watching news that night, and he realises that Elizabeth has used his phone to raise the alarm. He is furious with Elizabeth. He is furious that she's done this. And he's screaming at her. He's screaming at her that she has fucked the whole thing up. She has completely caused a situation. But his anger, it very quickly turns to panic. And I mean, this is ridiculous. I've never heard anything more ridiculous in my life. He asks the 14-year-old Elizabeth, the girl he has kidnapped, for advice. He says to her, What should I do? What should I do now? What should I do now that you have alerted someone? What do you think, you dick? What do you think you should do, you fucking idiot? Elizabeth tells him, run. She says, this is the plan. Leave me here, you run. She says, if you go now, you will have a head start on police. I'll not tell anyone what you look like. I'll not say anything. I'll just let them find me. But you just need to go now. If you want to be free, run. He takes Elizabeth's advice. He goes, yes, good plan. He flees. He flees the bunker and he leaves Elizabeth lying in the single bed with the explosives around her neck. Shortly after he leaves, when she is sure that he is a distance away, that is when, for the first time in 10 days, Elizabeth begins to scream for help. She is screaming and screaming and screaming, and not once in 10 days did she do that. She kept her cool, she kept her control, but now that she knows he is running from police, she starts to scream her head off. By now, because of the text message, the forest is full of search parties, and through the trees, one of the search parties, they hear the screams. They follow the screams and they get to the bunker and they find Elizabeth. Very quickly, police arrive and they lift her out. The explosives around her neck are carefully taken off and she's now safe. She is taken to hospital. She's reunited with her family and the treatment for her injuries begins. Meanwhile, a manhunt for Phil Yaw begins. Helicopters are circling the area, looking for him, in case he's still hiding in the nearby woods. Now, this is where this man is going to get even more fucking scary. This bunker was not a one-off place that Phil Yaw had built. Near the edge of the woods was his home. And over many, many years, he had built a series of underground tunnels, like a warren of tunnels underground, leading from his back door to various points in the woods. So the one that Elizabeth was in was just one of 20 that he had dug out over the years. Police start to realise that actually this man has the most insane knowledge of the woods. He has created an entire underground system for himself. So now they start to go, well, he could be hiding in any of these. How are we ever going to fucking find him? Because he has essentially built all of these tunnels leading from his house into the woods. So the search continues. Days pass. Weeks pass. And he's not found. Police assume he must be in one of his tunnels. However, he isn't hiding in a tunnel. What he'd done is he'd fled to the next city over. I mean, not really that far. I would have thought he would have went a bit further, but he didn't. He just went to the next city over from where this happened with Elizabeth. And at 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 weeks after Elizabeth has been found, Phil Yaw is standing outside of a pizza restaurant when he decides at 2 a.m. in the morning he needs a car. He needs to flee, he needs to get away. And so he attempts to carjack a woman who's on her own at 2 a.m. But he's completely unsuccessful and she gets away. As soon as she gets away, she calls police. And when she gives the description to police, they instantly go, it's him. It's him. let's go and find him. So from where the woman described that the carjacking had taken place, they go looking, and walking down the street, there is the tall, skinny, shaven head, creepy fucking faced Phil Yaw walking down the street with a gun, a taser, and a hunting knife. Police stop him, and they know this is the man they are looking for. He's arrested instantly with kidnap, rape, and the attempted murder of Elizabeth. Thank fuck. Now, it's not really that long, but he stands in front of a judge, and he doesn't even try to defend himself. He just pleads guilty to the 10 counts of criminal charges brought against him. And I love what the judge says here. I love it. Judge G. Thomas Cooper says this: I have a strong belief you have forfeited your right to be a member of this society. I can think of no crimes short of murder more repulsive than this. Well said. Well said, that judge. So, Phil Yaw is sentenced to 421 years in prison. And so what of Elizabeth? Well, the strength that she showed in those 10 days in the bunker, it didn't stop once she was free. She remained strong, and to this day, she is strong. I mean, of course, there's been impact on her life, and there's been therapy, and there's things for Elizabeth to work through. But really, she's gone from strength to strength. Her dad says, I look at her all the time, and I think about what she went through, and I think how she did that, and I think how did she cope in those days. But I know that my daughter is one of the strongest people I will ever know. Elizabeth decided she was going to take control of this story. She needed to take control of the next part of the story because she never wanted to just be the Elizabeth who was kidnapped, held in a bunker and raped for 10 days. And so she uses her story to empower people and let other people know you can come through horrific experiences. It's not easy. No, it's not. But you can come through it. So she talks now and she gives these speeches as part of sexual assault survivors. She talks to high school students and college students. And she thanks God for the strength that she found. And, she continues to just put that past behind her. She's now 26 years old. And Elizabeth Shoaf says, I am determined to let my story be a lesson to others. Phil Yaw still rots in jail and will for the rest of his life. And so ends the story of Elizabeth. Well, there you go. Elizabeth. Wow. What a story. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And it is rough in parts. It's really rough. I think because it's so visual as well. You can... and I would warn you that if you are going to do this, and I would think now you've heard the story, do it just out of your own curiosity because, well, I can get a bit like that. Sometimes if I hear a story, I'm like, I need to see the pictures. Go and look at the actual bunker because it's been photographed really well. Go and look at the bit of the woodland that he took her into. It'll just help you, understand it. But it is grim. It is rough. But in a way, I kind of think sometimes it's worth seeing that just so that you get the full picture of it. If you don't want to see it, don't bother. Just let it live in your imagination. That's absolutely fine. But you know what? I kind of just love Elizabeth because I think she's great. She's just strong. She's like, yes, this happened. Yes, I need to deal with it. I'm not going to live my life as a victim. I'm going to live my life as, yeah, that happened to me. It was terrible for those 10 days when I was 14 that this happened to me. And yeah, maybe that will have a massive effect on the rest of her life. But also, she's like, you know what? I'm not going to live my life as a victim. I'm going to basically own the situation and turn it into what I need to turn it into. Alright, so that was the next episode in the Survivor series. If you want to join the conversation about the Survivor series, join the Facebook group. It's amazing. There's so many great conversations going on at the moment. If you want to, you could help me by leaving an iTunes review. I know not everyone listens on iTunes. I know some of you are pod fish or pod, I don't know what they're all called. Bean, pod, fit, no. What are they called? Pod bean, pod something. Snapfish. No, I don't know. Anyway, I know you don't all listen on iTunes, but if you do, leave me an iTunes review, or even on any podcatcher, leave me a review. That would be really nice. If you want to support the podcast, you can through Patreon. I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Okay. Until the next episode in the Survivor series. Thank you for listening. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.